Joining me now is writer and broadcaster Esther Krakue. Esther, with Harry's imminent visit to the UK, speculation continues about his relationship with his family, who he will see, who he won't see while he's there. Where does all that stand at the moment?
So we know that Prince Harry is due to meet up with King Charles. Their relationship has somewhat thawed, particularly after the revelation that his father, the king, has cancer. There are reports that Prince Harry has no plans of seeing Prince William, and I think that the feeling is mutual. I suspect actually Prince Harry might have extended an olive branch, but Prince William and his family are just not interested at all. Clearly, the trust has been broken. There are many questions as to why Meghan and the children are not joining him, because we know that he wanted to bring them over. Now, there are a few reasons this could potentially this could potentially be for a few reasons. One, because he's planning on appealing his case against the Home Office to the Court of Appeal. It could be a legal tactic to say, look, for the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games, this organization I've been involved in since its conception, I couldn't even bring my family over. So it could be a tactic to kind of pull at the heartstrings of the court. That's one thing. Another thing could be because obviously it's Archie's birthday. Meghan wanted to stay over with the kids as she did for the king's coronation. Another reason could be Meghan just doesn't feel comfortable coming to the UK. There have been reports that she doesn't want to be part of kind of the whole media or tabloid frenzy. I don't suspect that's really the case, because she's part of that frenzy anyway. I mean, if she's not getting it from British media, she's certainly getting it from American media. She was featured in an episode of South Park, for the love of God. And then the last question is obviously the safety, or the last option is probably the safety reason, where Harry doesn't feel safe. And he said this many times, bringing his family over. I do find it curious that he feels safer in the US, a country where you can freely carry guns to even places like Walmart. But somehow the UK, that has a much better and safer track record, he doesn't feel safe. Meghan and Harry are also planning a trip to Nigeria as part of the Invictus Games. They're invited by the Nigerian military. And again, it's raised questions as to why the couple feels safe in a country like Nigeria, even surrounded by sort of all the military entourage and all of that, but not in the UK. So there are very many questions around the nature of this visit, why it's only Harry, what is his motivations behind it just being him, and him not visiting with his family, why he's only seeing his father, the king, and not his sister-in-law, who's also undergoing cancer treatment. But there might be a few surprises. Meghan could potentially come to the UK and then join Harry on their trip to Nigeria. It's a very common flight stopover. You usually don't fly directly from Los Angeles all the way to Lagos. You usually have to do a stopover somewhere in Europe, and that tends to be the UK, because it tends to have the most flights to Nigeria. So there are many questions around the logistics of this and the reasons behind it. But I personally suspect that one, Harry knows that he's not welcome in the Wales's home, for obvious reasons. Kate doesn't need that kind of stress when she's undergoing cancer treatment. And I also think that Meghan actually is probably using Archie's birthday as a decent excuse to just stay away. I don't know if it's necessarily she fears for her safety, but I just don't think she's very comfortable coming to the UK, and I don't think the British public are particularly fussed about that either.
And we understand that Harry is meant to be staying in a hotel, not staying with family. Whispers are that the family are too busy to see him. Ordinarily, you'd think that was a cop-out, right? But at the moment, they are carrying quite the workload. Is that a reasonable excuse?
Yes, of course. I mean, the king just returned to royal duties this week. He's clearly been very enthusiastic. His first activity coming back into his public duty has been going to visit Cancer Research UK and the London headquarters. So he clearly has a lot on his plate, and so has the Queen, who's really taken up, absorbed a lot of the king's duties since he's been missing in action. The same with Prince William, taking care of his wife, as well as resuming some public duties as well. So clearly the core of the family are stretched, and so there's a viable excuse there. I think the bigger reason, of course, is the fact that the trust has been broken. They don't know if Harry's going to come with Netflix cameras or some sort of hidden wires. Harry has been quite strategic in announcing his visit. to the UK. I think that's something as well to buttress his case for heightened security. But again, I personally suspect that his case with the Court of Appeal will be unsuccessful. I don't think just making the argument to the court that, oh, look, poor me, I couldn't bring my family over, is enough to basically overturn the national security arrangements of an entire country. You have high profile celebrities like the Beckhams and other members of the public that are very, very well known, that have their own private security alongside elements of police security police protection when it is required. You don't just get an automatic right to that. Not even people like Salman Rushdie, who had a fatwa against him, were given that privilege easily. So, I personally think that he's been quite clever in announcing his visit to try and say, look, this is my security threat. And also because the family aren't planning to really see him other than King Charles, and I suspect it'll be a short visit, he can't really be brought into the royal fold of security. It's not like he's coming for Garter Day or any other kind of or royal escort or anything that would require him to be amongst the protection umbrella of the royal family.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned a little earlier, after this UK trip, Meghan and Harry are going to Nigeria on tour. What is that all about?
So they've been invited by the Nigerian military as part of an Invictus Games. Nigeria has the largest military on the African continent. About 30% of non-active personnel are women. They did send some athletes to the Invictus Games last time it was held. So they do have some sort of relationship with the Invictus Games, which is obviously Prince Harry's beloved project. There are rumors that the couple will engage in some sort of cultural activities, which is to be expected. You don't fly all the way to Nigeria just for this one thing. I'm sure they want to get stuck in. There's a bit of concern though that will they overstep the mark and kind of act like faux royals and undertake this kind of faux dignitary role or like ambassadorial role that's usually reserved for the royal family, understandably so, and King Charles as the head of state. We don't know. This couple they're quite interesting because they tend to not necessarily engage with the royal family, so understand that the nuances of how to really deal with foreign dignitaries and how their behavior would impact the United Kingdom. The royal family are not just the royal family, they're also the head of an institution that represents many countries as well, and their actions unfortunately does have an impact there. But because it looks like they're going uniquely in the capacity of the Invictus Games, there shouldn't be too much controversy there. It looks like they're trying to successfully rebrand themselves as some sort of influencer couple, which is probably the only option that they have left. Like I said, they're not, chemists or surgeons or people with any kind of professional background. Harry was a prince his whole life, and Meghan was sort of reasonably successful actress and in her own right, but it's not a set of expertise or skills that you can bring. She's not an opera singer or a ballet dancer, for instance. So really their only option are to be influencers, and I think that's probably what they're going to focus on, whether it's as dignified as being working royals or not. But with the visit to Nigeria, there were concerns, like I said, about kind of ruffling a few feathers, but I think because of the capacity they're going into, it's probably reasonably safe.
Now, an interesting claim this week that the royal family rift is causing a damaged generation of monarchy. Take a look at this.
As children get older, they get more curious about their family, don't they? Why haven't I met my cousins? Why haven't I met my uncle and his wife and all of that?
Absolutely, and hopefully it will be the children that mend the relationship, because obviously they want to see each other, and it will be really, really sad for that not to happen. In fact, it will sort of be like a damaged generation, really, if something doesn't work out.
Esther, do you think that's a fair observation? Or perhaps do you think that some of the damage from the last generation is partially the cause of all this?
I think that's a fair allegation, and I think that's something that I've been very vocal about. That's what concerns me. You have Lilibet and Archie taking their titles, basically their parents insisting that they be given the title of prince and princess, and yet they have really no significant ties to the royal family in any meaningful way. They just happen to be the children of the king's son. And so you're questioning why did they do that, especially because they've been so vocal about their grievances within the institution and with the royal family at large. And I don't think this is one of those things that can actually be mended by the children. Like I've mentioned before, I think this rift is just going to calcify, and it's because above everything, the trust has been lost. The trust has been broken. Any kind of relationship that the Sussexes will now want to have with the royal family will try and look like they're weaseling their way back into relevance. The whole Netflix thing and the Oprah interviews, them kind of blowing the lid off this whole institution has really just not only not endeared themselves to the public, but also has completely destroyed any hopes that Prince William and his family and the king and the queen particularly can even trust them. I mean, Harry revealed some very, very uncomfortable details about his relationship or his feelings towards Queen Camilla, towards his sister-in-law, that the public was under the assumption that they had a good, close relationship with. He also showed a lot of immaturity and lack of judgment in his actions, and you just can't be of that character and have any sort of meaningful relationship with the royal family. And I think those accusations extend as well to Meghan. Although Meghan is, you could say, she's a bit more forgived because she didn't grow up in the royal family. She's American. She may not understand the institution. I think Prince Harry really didn't prepare her very well. He just kind of shoehorned her into the institution. You had the likes of Princess Catherine, who was with William for 10 years. They dated for 10 years. She was in her 20s. She knew the kind of transition she would have to make if she chose to go on this path. I think it was even harder for someone like Meghan, who was in her late 30s when she met Prince Harry. That transition would have been even more daunting because she's a grown woman who's had a life. She's been married before. And I think Prince Harry made no accommodation for that. And I think just their actions within the institution has really not endeared them to the public at all. So unfortunately, the kids have to bear the brunt of this. I think their titles are utterly meaningless unless the Sussexes are planning on doing something even tackier, like capitalizing on their children's titles, which wouldn't be sort of out of character. But again, it's very vulgar. It's something that the British people don't appreciate because yes, the royal family are people, but more than that, they're an institution and they represent something to the UK. And to just have their titles almost prostituted in this way is quite insulting.
Speaking of the institution, and the royal family is coming up to a busy period prior to the summer break. They've got the Buckingham Palace Garden Party, Royal Ascot, Garter Day at Windsor Castle, and of course Trooping the Colour. Do we know if Princess Catherine will be attending any of these events?
So far, it's been earmarked for her to not attend the events, and understandably so. She's still undergoing preventative treatment for cancer. I think it's been very clear that they don't want to put any pressure on her. If they announced that she was actually going to be there, there's a lot of there will be a lot of speculation and questions about her health, how she's getting on, and just kind of the things that you want to keep private and within the family. Now, it is possible she might make a surprise appearance because Princess Catherine has always been a very consistent part of the royal family fold for well over a decade now, and I'm sure it's something that she would like to do as well. She does take her duties quite seriously, it would seem. But at the moment, we don't believe that she is going to be involved. We know the king is going to be involved, but again, this would have been an opportune time to have other members of the royal family pick up a bit of the slack. I'm sure Prince Harry would have wanted his kids to see something like Garter Day and Trooping the Colour and all of these very uniquely British things, but unfortunately that's not the case. And so we now have a situation where the royal family is basically stretched to the limit, and you have to kind of balance tact with privacy and not pushing anything. And so I believe that while it's been earmarked that Princess Catherine is not expected to attend, I think she might make an appearance or two, and I think it would really lift the public spirits because again, the revelation of these cancer diagnoses for both the king and Princess Catherine has been quite a shock to the public, and I think anything to lift their spirits would be very welcome.
And last week on the show, we discussed Charles's return to public duties. This week, he has been out and about. Unsurprisingly, Camilla has had to curb his enthusiasm.
Yes, as I'm sure we all expected would be the case. We know that she's described him as a bit of a workaholic. He's not someone that likes to laze around. I mean, he's been waiting to be king his entire life. This Monday will be the anniversary of his coronation, and he didn't think that in the first year of his reign he would be saddled with an awful cancer diagnosis and would have had to deal with so much, including what his son and daughter-in-law, the Sussexes, have put him through, and particularly his mother through during the last few years of her reign. So he's obviously had quite a full-on experience as the new reigning monarch, and it's been quite heavy for him. So you can see why he's very keen to get out and about and to kind of inspire hope, especially when he was talking at the Macmillan Cancer Research headquarters, talking about to actual people undergoing cancer treatment, saying, look, I am where you are right now. He was very emotional and affectionate. He was very touchy, and he's holding people's hands, which is a huge kind of uh, it's a huge kind of distance from how he used to behave. This is not a man who's known for being touchy-feely. There's a famous picture of him shaking his mother's hands when he was going to school, back in, I believe, the 50s or so. So he's not known for being quite physically affectionate with the public, but this has been quite a shift in his personality, and it shows not only does he feel touched now to be with these people during this time of his life where he is also undergoing cancer treatment, but he really does want to give all of himself for as long as he has. He's obviously not going to serve for as long as his mother, clearly, but he wants to make the most of it. He is a transition monarch, and he wants to leave the UK and the Commonwealth in a safe pair of hands, and he needs to do his bit to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing how a life experience like being diagnosed and treated for cancer can really change the way that one person interacts with others. So that there, I think, is an incredible observation. Now, one last thing. We understand the palace is doing a review of the royal patronages. What's the purpose, and is there an expected result here?
So we don't know. It's just a review, and so these things happen from time to time. I wish the British government would make a habit of reviewing policy as well, but unfortunately, that's not the case. We don't know anything yet. We just know that it's a review, and that it's undergoing. There are many charities, organisations that are hoping to be part of the fold, because we know that anywhere the royal family goes, any organization that they link to gets a lot of public attention. It really, really boosts the popularity and the visibility of various charities and organizations here in the UK. Obviously, there has to be a logistical element there. There are fewer working members of the royal family. You have three down with Prince Andrew and the Sussexes. So it's, allocating who gets to basically be the royal patron for which organization is going to be quite important as well. I suspect Princess Anne will probably actually take on even more work, because she's easily the hardest working royal, not just by the number of engagements, but how active and proactive she is with the organizations that she works with. She tends to turn up to events and engagements very knowledgeable, very interested, really getting involved and seeing how she can do her bit. So at the moment, we don't really know that much other than it's just a review, and we'll see how this will evolve in time.
Thank you for that, Esther Krakue. A pleasure as always.